This video is about practical application. So in it, I'm actually interviewing two people and giving them advice in a consultation. We go through how to buy real estate with your IRA, the biggest mistakes people make with IRAs and how they purchase real estate, how to convert from tax-deferred income to tax-free income, and then how to protect your downside when the market goes down, and the quickest ways to pay off a loan, and the right and wrong way to save money with insurance, and then finally the basics on how to insure your income or your key people if you're a business owner. There's a certain part in here where I'm talking about how to save money on the side to pay off a loan a little bit quicker. We move pretty quick into that part because we're protecting their confidentiality. But this is a real case study to give you real results in your life. Anything on your guys' mind? What would be the best outcome of our time together today? And how can I create the most value?
We, have been putting away money in retirement, but we also want to open up a third practice. And so we started putting less money in the retirement. And I just am realizing as I was, going through stuff today that that's just a mistake, I think, because that's not coming off of our business, or we're getting taxed on that now since we're not putting it in the retirement. So we should probably, rethink that.
Well, we should look at, with two businesses and a possible third, what additional tax strategies can create efficiency that would help you pay less tax regardless of how much you contribute to the retirement plan, because there might be a lot of opportunity around that. And how you have kids, but they're pretty young. How many kids do you have?
So 1 and 6, and then I've got a 16-year-old from the first go around.
Okay, cool. So there's definitely some, ways that we might be able to pay them. There's also, ways to potentially use your residence for employees or maybe even patients. And get a big write-off.
We're doing that already. We're doing that for a couple of years. So
awesome.
We got Augusta check. So we do have a third company that's.
Do you own any buildings?
We do not. No, we don't.
3 ideas for you here.
Okay.
The first idea is if you are going to buy a building, you can consider moving those Iras to self-directed IRAs, and you can actually be the lender. You could use it as a loan in acquiring the real estate. So you get
your investment guide said that it can't be for you or for a relative or someone that or a partner, I think.
If it would be for one of the other practices that you're not in, that might qualify. And you're just a lender. Because one of the things you don't want to do is anyone in any property, you could pretty much buy real estate inside of the IRA. The problem with that is you can't depreciate it for tax purposes anymore, and you make a capital gain asset ordinary income, which actually raises the rate when you sell it versus lowers the rate. But there could be lending opportunities within even, what he's saying. There's 2 other ideas I have to still make that work, even if it is the primary piece of real estate. The second one is a rescue strategy. So what if we were to consider taking these IRAs and converting them as a one-time rollover or conversion to a Roth? What I like about a Roth is if taxes go up in the future, I don't want you being a deferred account that taxes are going to go up on you. And then when you go to take it out, you're paying a higher rate. Where a Roth, you could pay the tax in the year, but if we can actually have the underlying assets inside of the Roth be valued lower than they're actually worth, because maybe they're more of a cash flow asset than a high evaluation asset, there are some strategies there that we might be able to consider. And then the third thing is, even if you leave them where they are, I would have you heavily consider a trailing stop loss for protection, because all weather, I love it. I love the way you're thinking, you're reading the right things. But what if the market were to tank a little bit? At what point when the market goes down would your mindset follow it? Would you be like, oh my gosh, all this hard-earned money is going down, and you start losing sleep or feeling stress? So you can set a floor that says if it goes down by a certain amount, it just moves to cash. No talking to brokers, no phone calls necessary. You just know that that is your floor and you're not willing to go below that. So you kind of have a protective mechanism built in.
Do you know, I called Vanguard after I got back from Minneapolis, and they do not offer that. That's not an option. So do you know
I'm not surprised because they don't want you out of their funds.
I get it, right? So do you know someone that handles that traditional IRA stuff that is as
we could get
low
you back
fees.
with the registered investment advisor and have him, research the companies, which ones can do it. I like the Vanguard concept of really lowering fees, right? That's awesome. And also looking at the IRAs that are self-directed. A lot of those self-directeds will just charge a flat fee and could be a much lower fee than most IRAs inside brokerages. So if we keep the fees low on the fund management side and then keep the fees low on the actual administration side, and then just find one. What are one of these things that we could find that would make sense from a trailing stop loss without increasing your fees much? So I don't know that answer, but the investment advisor, he can research it and tell you what it is. And he can also look at the self-directed companies that have the lowest fees, because it's not like a bank that it could, where you're worried about, hey, is this bank going to go out? It's a third-party administrator that's just a clearinghouse, essentially. So I think for the most part, if we can just find it be low fee but still easy to look at, then you're good.
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that idea, though. Yep.
I just want to ask him about my student loan. So we got blessed by God right before we were graduating, and our financial aid department at Palmer was like, hey, rates are going up big time. You're going to lock in now, sign the papers. It was just like, sign the papers, like, don't even think about it. My student loan rate got locked in the entire thing at 1.75.
That's amazing.
So
like a third less or a fourth less than everybody else. I mean, they're paying 3 to 4 times more than that right now.
Right. So I was only paying the minimum payment for a long time. And then Chris and I were talking, he's like, I know it's 1.75. And people are like, don't pay any more, put it in stocks, put it wherever. But if you don't know where to put it, you're like, okay, well, what am I doing? Just holding onto this loan. So I did double it, and I've been, I should get it paid off in like 3-4 years here, but I could always, Chris's thought on it. And then I was like, okay, that makes sense. Is like, it's still a loan. You still have this thousands of dollars to pay back, like just get it paid off. So that has been my strategy to this point. And I'm, like I said, I probably have another 4 years or so on it, but.
What other loans do you guys have other than student loans? Because that's really cheap.
Mortgage and car loan. That's it. Yeah, I'm paid off.
What's your car loan interest rate?
3 point something, like 3.99 or something.
How long ago did you buy the car, and what length of loan did you get?
I've had my truck for a year now. I mean, I could pay it off if I wanted to, but maybe I should just do that. I
would do that before the student loan, just because the interest rate's higher.
Right.
What's great is all your loans are really low interest rate. I imagine your mortgages as well.
3.75.
I mean, anything sub 5%, you're in a pretty great situation. And the whole concept is, can you earn higher than you're paying? Because if you do, earn the money, but you're also saying, hey, well, I don't know where to earn that. But if you do know
that was part of it,
and let it build up, then you can just pay it off in one lump sum. You can just take the money and pay it off in one lump sum. That way, you control the money along the way. You're earning a little bit more than you're paying, but you can't do that. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that in stocks, because I don't know when the market's going to correct, but I think it's going to have a correction. And you don't end up having that delay it, because certainty, I think, has value over uncertainty, right?
Totally. Okay.
So that was part of the reason that, it was just like pay it off, because we really didn't have anywhere where I was like super excited knowing that we're going to make 4 or 5%, and
have Tim connected to some cash flow banking guys and have them show side by side how long, how much, what guarantees are, so you can really assess and be like, oh, well, we're just faster paying it off, how we're paying it off, or, oh, this would be faster and give us some more wealth.
Right. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else, babe?
Well, I mean, we still got to figure out, and I'm going to start figuring or get into that with the, the overfunded whole life and how that all works. And I know you said something, Garrett, about like minimizing commissions by overfunding it. So obviously, I'm sure they'll help me with that. But obviously, pay the least. And I know those first couple of years suck usually on the whole life. You're
taking a hit on fees, on reserves, and all that. So you just have to see what your break-even point is, and because that's the biggest. There's 2 things I don't like about whole life. Well, 3. 1, most people sell it wrong, so you're just paying so much commission that you're not getting performance. The second thing is, even if it is funded right, there still is this capitalization period that it takes some time to kind of get where it needs to go. And then ultimately, it's a little bit less convenient than a savings account or a checking account, because you got to make phone calls or fill out paperwork to get to your cash. But other than that, it's pretty great stuff.
Yeah, we sat down with somebody about that and we both were not impressed, and we just wrote it off like ages ago now. So this is just like kind of getting it back in our whole existence now.
Yeah, 80% of the time when I see a policy, it's not funded right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only really like 24 companies that are worth going with, because outside of them, they don't have the right structure, or that's not their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
You can't overfund it enough, or things like that. I mean, when people are extraordinarily wealthy, or when people can put $1 million away into this per year, they don't even use agents. They just get it designed specifically by an insurance company through private placement life insurance. You mentioned learning about Ray Dalio and All Seasons from Tony Robbins' book. Well, in his book, he has just one page of the 650 on Money Master the Game that talks about private placement. And part of the reason for that is most people can't qualify for it. So what I did,
because you get $1 million,
I'm like, how do we design a normal policy to operate as closely as possible to private placement?
Mm-hmm.
Still not quite as good, but close. Like it's come, so much closer, and that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have disability insurance, but I mean, we're both chiropractors. We have a couple offices. We've got associates, so if something happened, one of us could manage both offices. I don't know if it's really worth it.
Look at business overhead expense. That's probably makes a little sense to look into.
But I mean, even
would say if you because the way disability typically works isn't someone becomes a paraplegic or quadriplegic. It's usually a temporary thing that they get past. And so business overhead expense says if one of you were disabled for longer than 30 days, a policy would kick in for 1 or 2 years to pay expenses for the office. So it would mean that you could get another associate in there if you needed to for the time that you're not adjusting. You could pay for the team, and if you needed more assistant, because I'm sure that you two are some of the most productive people in the practice altogether. So it's not just what you provide table side, it's also what you provide when you're not table side. And so you have some management. So I have a business overhead expense for Wealth Factory because I'm kind of the key asset for Wealth Factory. There's amazing people that work within it, but if I'm gone, we take the biggest hit, right?
Totally.
So I have a business overhead. So that's something that, you can meet with a disability expert in the Wealth Architecture Network and look at it and just kind of see. Gotcha.
How about, tell me real quick about, I know you're telling us about having the, like, I don't know what you call it, but is it like whatever key person insurance, like on people that you work with, or like, can we do that on like our associate? How does that work? And you mentioned like you've got ownership of the policy, and it like seems like it had a sort of a bonus value at the end.
Yeah, I have whole life policies on people that I've worked with because I have an insurable interest in them. If something happens to them, like, look, I had 2 business partners die in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And I had $500,000 on each of them, and I blew through $700,000 of that because we had 42 employees and they're grieving, and we're in chaos because that's half of our partners, and we have 3 offices, and they were all personality based. There wasn't a single damn system in their office, right? And I didn't know. So it's like that key man was essential. And plus I had 4 months of being like the biggest financial mistakes I'd ever made in my life because I was dealing with the grieving and the emotion, and I wasn't doing all the stuff I would teach with meeting with the attorneys and crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And so I was really glad that I had that. So I definitely recommend, some type of key man on those people that are most instrumental, like an associate. And how much you can get, it will determine on how valuable they are to the organization according to the insurance company. You can get term insurance or you can get whole life, but my recommendation is start with term, get the most on yourselves before you worry about getting stuff on them that would provide cash value. But at least, if you did have something happen, you'd have the cash to kind of handle whatever cash crunch might come along with that. I mean, it's a big deal for the employees when there's a loss. It's a big deal for the patients when there's a loss. I mean, we had all these people that had paid us for them to coach. Well, I didn't have capacity to coach everybody that they were coaching, so we had refunds. We had to put on special events. It was
to kind of bring it back.
And it's not really likely to happen, but if it happens, it's catastrophic, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Hey, I really enjoyed this. It was fun.
Thank you. We
Likewise.
did too. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.